yeah. Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, yeah, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Trash talking, who the best? Who make good or bad trades? Who pick the best players? Who got certified game? We just football lovers. Come and join the funny games with the Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers. Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers. You're now tuned in to the Banter Brothers with your host, Brian Paulo, and his co-host, Nick Johnson. Coming at you live with this week's fantasy football highlights and trash talk. Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers. Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers, Banter Brothers.
Oh, hey. Oh, there you are.
Emergency podcast. We need to talk about this Herbert and Gaskin trade immediately.
Welcome to the new setup, boys.
Hopefully it works. Technology can be a biatch.
So, update, as you can see.
At the very bottom, there is a ticker tape.
Trade alert. So where do you want to begin, Nick?
Well, should we talk about the week's matchups or should we just talk about the trade?
Let's talk about the trade.
We can talk about the trade.
Okay.
Okay, so we both have opinions. Should we start with yours or would you like to start with mine?
Doesn't matter. It's a good trade. Congratulations, guys. Fantastic trade for everyone.
Yeah, it's I think it depends on from what side and where you're looking at. I think that for this season, number one, like I said in the text thread last night, I think that it's great that Mike is trying to push from the three-way last place and try and make a push for the playoffs. Congratulations, mister. You got the balls of steel trying to make that trade. I think that for this season, I think it's relatively a good trade for both people. My concerns are more because it's a keeper league. I'm just wondering who's Mike's keeper is going to be. I kind of think that he screwed himself for next year for the very low chance of making it into the playoffs this year.
Well, maybe he's valuing someone else high, right? Maybe it's Samuel.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure that's what he's doing, but I think that when you look at where players are going to be projected for next year, right? So if you think that Debo is going to be, let's say, in the top five of wide receivers, let's say, typically those guys are going mid-second, late second round.
Well, Hill and Adams went first round this year.
Yeah, he's not Hill or Adams.
Right now, he's top five, right?
Yeah, top five.
But
Hill and Adams are projected always as the top two receivers. And why? Because they have the Hall of Fame quarterbacks throwing them the football. And so it's a high target share and all of this other stuff. Right now, San Francisco's offense is a complete mess. They don't know what to do with themselves. Debo's obviously having a great season, but I don't think you can project that long-term the way it is. I mean, again, Mike can be doing this. I'm not saying he's wrong. But if you value him in anywhere in that plus in that wide receiver 3 to 5 territory, typically that's a second round pick. And so, for next year, you're going to keep Debo, but you didn't get a trade draft pick kicker to help you out for next year. So I just think that you're putting yourself behind the ball for next year for a push to try and make it into the group of guys that are already battling for the 6th spot. Great trade for this year. He needed to do something if he wanted to do it. I just think that he's putting himself behind the ball for next year with that trade.
Well, this year, yes. This year, good. Patterson is the question mark with the upside. You know what I mean? Especially now that your boy, Ridley, is taking some time off. And
listen, everybody needs a mental siesta, buddy.
We all need a mental break, man. We all need a mental health day. or
Yep.
mental health year.
Yeah.
Why not? But either way, is he going to get more? Is he going to get more snaps on his spot now? Then he can kind of play. He's a fantastic flex spot person. But yeah, it gives Mike more depth and to compete this year as a push. But who knows? For a keeper, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
He
like,
does.
it was a great waiver pickup by Taylor back when it happened. I think everybody was shocked that it had even happened for 2 weeks, and even more shocked that it's gone on pretty consistently for 8 weeks. So I think that there is a very reasonable expectation that Cordell Patterson's fantasy production of sorts is here to stay for the rest of the year.
And increasing, probably, yes.
Increasing, but the question is, when it increases, does that make him less of a gadget and surprise play, and that teams are able to account for him a little bit better? I don't know. I mean, I won't pretend to know anything.
Time will tell.
Time will tell for sure. I like the trade. If I was Mike, I would have wanted someone better than Amari Cooper. Got big name, but very boomer bust. Not very consistent, and Mike's already got one of those in Mike Evans. So
is he wide receiver number 1 in Dallas?
No, he's number 2.
What, CD is number 1?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Just a much more reliable target share. If you click on his stats and just look at his weekly production, which of course I can do now. What team is he on now? He's on Mike's team. So okay, so here I'll just read this live. So game logs week to week. Okay, this is week 1 through. Okay, 32.4 points week 1. Amazing week winner, right? Follows it up with 3.9 points, 4.1 points, right? So those kill you, right?
Yeah.
Those absolutely kill you for those weeks. Okay, then you follow up with 14.4, 13.5. Not bad. I mean, that's not bad. Then 8, which is again not great, and then 22.2. He's a boomer bust guy, right? And so that's perfectly fine. But that's what Mike Evans also is. So you're there's going to be weeks that you're going to be screwed by him. There's going to be weeks that you're really helped by him, and you're not going to know. So you just got to start him and not be upset by it, right? And Cordell is very consistent. After the first couple of weeks where he had those huge point booms, he's been very consistent with that 13 to 15 point a week sort of thing.
Very consistent, yeah. So good. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be good for both. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's not a bad trade for Mike this year. It's not. I mean, he needed to do something if he wanted to move. He had issues with his depth. He just did. And so if you're making that thing, as far as I'm looking at it now, Mike is all in trying to push for this year because he's traded away next year a little bit to try and get himself back into it this year. So
okay,
bravo for the Stones.
Well, out of the bottom 3, is he more favorable to go up?
Well, I mean, is he more favorable? I guess it really just depends on its matchups, right?
Chris, you got to move CMC now.
That's right. He's got to move. But I mean, that's a good, like we were talking about last week with CMC. That's sort of the package-ish of sorts that Taylor got or had to give up for Kamara, right?
Correct.
2 starting caliber players. But in my mind, it would have been a higher than an Amari Cooper as that second guy. But I mean, that's that. If you're looking again to challenge for this year, if you're not looking to challenge for this year, that's the philosophy. If you're not challenging for this year, then you've got to get a player that you think is going to be a very high second rounder to first round player as your keeper for McCaffrey or any of these guys, because you're just putting yourself behind the ball otherwise, right? So it just depends. Mike's going for it this year, so this is what the package is that you get.
Good stuff. So other than that, we had another it was a crazy day yesterday.
Crazy.
From all these COVIDs and
Paulo and Taylor's team crater. I was kind of hoping Kevin's team was going to crater with all these things, but unfortunately not as of yet.
No, from Rodgers to Barkley to who else went on the wire, man? Like everyone.
Well, your name value trying to trade him for everything you could possibly get, Michael Thomas. Like guys, Michael Thomas.
Curtis, I feel your pain, Curtis. Yeah, I know that was just a disastrous day for me yesterday.
Yeah, I have talked to you about this before, but I have stopped trying to draft players that were going to start the year injured for 4 to 6 weeks because potentially if they come back, they're going to be my ace in the hole, this, that, and the other thing. It never works out. Anybody that misses training camp, anybody that misses the first handful of games, you know what's going to happen. They always come back. They always re-injure themselves. They're never back in game shape. They're not in the flow. It just never works out. It's always a great idea, but it just never works out.
I hear you. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I'm a dumbass.
Fool me, through me twice, you ain't never ever gonna fool me again. I think that's the George Bush line.
Is it? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
anyways, I picked up another clown to replace my other clown. So
yeah, Odell.
Yeah. Hey, every team needs a clown, so my guy is Odell now. So we'll see.
Yeah, I feel so
I'm
bad.
picking up for the reason that he hopes that he goes to another team. We'll see.
Sure.
We'll see if he releases himself.
Sure. They couldn't get any value for him. He hasn't been good for, again, 4 years. You're liking these guys. You're going for him. It's like that.
I got to take a chance. I got to take a chance on the flyer. Yes, that's what. Hey, man, I always have one of those guys in my back pocket. You never know.
Yeah. You always do have one or two of those guys in your back pocket.
I'm going to try to limit to like half, maybe one, but not two. But
yeah, you never get to your front pocket. I will say this about Kamara though for Taylor, right? Is obviously he's the name. He was the top 3 or 4 pick this year.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have Drew Brees. He now doesn't have Michael Thomas. He's now got Taysom Hill at a quarterback who in the 4 games that he started last year didn't really throw him the ball a lot. And now because there's definitely just no wide receiver protection, I think that he's a safe floor top 10 player sort of thing. I don't think he's going to be that boom player consistently week to week that he has been in the past. So again, I don't think it's a bad trade at all for this year, but I don't think Mike got completely destroyed on this trade at all. I think it was a trade that works for both of the guys.
100%. It was a good trade. I can't wait to see the more trades. I can't wait to see the first draft pick. I was guessing that there was going to be a draft pick, but now I'm guessing the next one's going to be a draft pick for sure.
Yeah, I would have liked it a lot better for Mike. And I think Taylor wins the trade, right? Taylor needed to try and trade some of his depth to get one big guy, and he was able to do it. I mean, depending on where you're at, I think Amari Cooper was his 5th best wide receiver. So I think if you look at the stats and also if you look at the consistency, Cooper, in my mind, no, not Cooper, I'm sorry, Cooks is his number 4 wide receiver.
Okay.
And so, he gave up arguably his 4th or 5th, depending on what your opinion is, wide receiver, and his waiver wire pickup that really worked out very well for him and obviously gave him that X factor. So he traded that for, a top player. Mm-hmm. So it works out for him. I was hoping that there was going to be a little bit of a draft sweetener, whether Mike picks up an extra round in a pick or something like that. I think that would have made it a little bit more palatable for me.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do you want to talk about, Nick?
I don't know, man. This week is starting off crazy.
I know. I can't wait to see who's going down next.
I'm kind of hoping it's all of Kevin's team.
Oh, yeah. We also forgot to talk about the Henry thing.
The Henry thing?
Yeah. Derrick Henry going down. What's Doug going to do?
Like a non-factor. You know what? Here's what I'll say. I think that Doug and Taylor right now currently are going through the pain that some of us went through early in the season. Those early podcasts where I was just losing my mind because my entire team was questionable heading into Sunday. You did it sort of to yourself a little bit, that you were picking up all of these injured players and just holding on to yourself. But it still limits your roster, right? So I think that they're going through some of the pain, and you can see that it's dropping Doug right now into the pack. He went 6-0 to start, starts to get some key players getting injured. Yeah. And then, hey, lo and behold, unlike Doug likes to say, like, oh, I did it to myself. It's like, no, you didn't do it to yourself. You just all of a sudden put in players that are more wishy-washy, that kind of come in and come out. That's what we've all been dealing with the injuries, right? So, and it's hit him for 2 weeks. And sort of Taylor's got that now with Rodgers going out, and of course you got Barkley. And so, the injuries and the buys tend to level things out a little bit more. It's very hard to just run through the year.
It is. I have not seen one time in a year that one person that just clears the board without any problems, anything.
Yeah, but what we should do is we should definitely revisit our 20-minute debate on CMC last week, in which you told me that Derrick Henry was not injury prone.
Yeah, superhuman.
We should definitely revisit this and say, oh, he's a superhuman beast of strength and nothing bad happens to him. We should definitely revisit that because I definitely win that side of the argument.
Yeah. Maybe we should just talk about players and then things just kind of happen. Maybe that's just how it is, right?
Well, listen, if I could will everyone that I was playing against to lose, then I would do that. But
Okay.
it doesn't work out that way. But yeah, it's, these things happen. Like Derrick Henry was given such a ridiculous workload for this year, for the third year in a row. Like it was something like he had carried the ball something like 150 more times than like the second best player or the second closest player or something. Like he was, when they routed the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of weeks ago, they didn't need him after the second quarter and they still ran him like 35 times. Yeah. So they burned this guy to the ground is what they've done. And so, listen, maybe he comes back. Obviously, Doug's going to hold on to him to only keep him for next year, which absolutely makes sense. But
they burned him, man. Like look what they're doing to Henderson. Like he plays 3 quarters on the blowout. They rest him for 4th quarters. They take him out. And so like it sucks for me. But, at least I'm going to have a fresh Henderson, hopefully later on.
Eventually, right? Well, you just limit the possibilities of getting injured, right? And so I remember having this conversation with Mike when we were doing our live draft party. It seems like so long ago now, but we were having it. And it was a question of who are you taking third? Is it going to be Kamara? Is it going to be Henry? Is it going to be Zeke? And the big question with Derrick Henry was not that he was great. It was they've run him into the ground the last 2 seasons. He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
When does it catch up? And by the looks of it, it caught up. He, fractured his foot for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Man. So we'll see. Does he come back next year at 30 years old, having the workload better? I don't know. How do you know?
What a difference from the next RB, my next guy, who's the new RB1, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
And so, and he was 50-point difference from him. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan Taylor's having a really good year. And he was always going to be a good player. He was drafted.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I find this league to be absolutely bananas. I thought that the Bengals were going to blow out the Jets last week.
Bengals,
and lo and behold, and there's just the Chiefs. There's just a lot of these teams and these guys that you think are going to do something, but there seems to be, I don't know. It's football any given Sunday, right? So, I like Taylor a lot. I have a very hard time with the Colts for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just the Wentz thing. Maybe it's just
it is the Wentz thing. That's why Taylor's doing Taylor stuff, because what else do they have? Like Pittman, but Pittman doesn't do the big stuff. Pittman does the small stuff.
Well, Pittman's coming in. Kevin, you want to trade me Pittman back? I'll take him.
Pittman was my waiver guy.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I recommended he come up. Find your feet, Kev. Give it back to me. So, it's. Again, right? How do you know? Like these guys, like Taylor's a beast, and he's young.
He's young.
So I don't know. How do you know, right? It's these guys are going down like crazy. I'm expecting big things from my Dalvin Cook for the second half because he's
okay. So looking forward to week 9. What do we have here?
Are we doing the full podcast?
Well, we'll do a kind of a little shindig. We'll have a couple more, like 5 more minutes. We'll just kind of a little update for everyone to kind of check your lineups. Everyone, check your lineups beforehand.
Again this week I will not be advising Kevin on anything to do. Just so
Kevin, I'll help you out. Ask away, Kevin. I'll help you out for sure.
Yep, I'm out.
But other than that, guys, check the check the computer because you get a little bit more info. If you want to trade, if you want to get more infos on some guys, if you want to get literally just get way more information if you do everything through the computer instead of your phone. So I'm just
if you're doing the phone, which I do a bunch of my stuff except for big trades where it makes me nervous to click. So but if you really want to know, you can click on an individual player, and when you click on that player, it will give you the option of an overview, game log, or stats. Oh, looks like Mike just picked up Tua.
Ooh, Tua
instead of Ty Johnson.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Hey, look at that.
Russell Wilson is available next week, Mikey. We can talk. Anyway, so if you click on the player, there's an overview of game log and the stats. So stats just goes obviously with what it is. But if you look at game logs, that will actually tell you week to week what these guys are doing. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a player that say has 100 points, but they had a 50-point week 3 and everything else has been completely just ridiculous, you can see that. So you can judge the consistency, you can judge the effectiveness. And so I find that to be a helpful tool, because it's not a lot of fun to just get screwed 3 weeks in a row by a player.
Yeah.
But that's just personally what I do.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I'm just waiting. We might have a special guest on.
A special guest? Oh no!
I've been waiting for the special guest to
come
come
on. I feel like I should be warned and prepped about this. I know. It feels a little gotcha.
No, I hear you. I hear you. But we're just trying to.
We should probably get to our booking agent in on this.
I know, yeah.
So there's lots of things. Obviously, this trade disrupts the balance of sorts. Mike is going for it now. He's going to push, which means, does he leave Chris and Kevin in the dust at the bottom end? Does that mean that if, say, Chris loses this week, that CMC becomes available? And now that the template for what that type of a player costs has been put out there now, is that something that Chris is willing to do to help him get himself pushed back into the playoff race like Mike's trying to do? Or does he say, okay, I'm going to hold or sit or go a completely different philosophy, right?
Yeah.
It should be very interesting, what certainly these guys at the bottom do. And then at the top, you've got Taylor at a 6-2 record. The regular season almost in some regards doesn't really matter too much for him anymore, except if you win that first place in the regular season, obviously you get a little bit of cash and that number 1 seed sort of thing. But he's set up very well for the playoffs rolling forward, right?
Well, he's looking good for the playoffs. I'm not going to lie.
So. Yeah, I mean, he obviously wanted to have one of those, like a big 3 in the running backs, which I can obviously very much appreciate. I love the running backs as opposed to the wide receivers. But, you hope that they stay injury okay. But again, I don't think Taylor sacrificed a ton of his depth to make this trade work. So I think he's in pretty good shape still.
He has well, the depth is depleting on his team for sure from this trade because, Patterson was his guy. But either way.
Yeah, his James Robinson of this year, his waiver wire.
James Robinson of this year. You are correct, yes.
Yeah, because I remember it was like week 2 or week 3 when that waiver wire happened. And I can't remember who the other, it might have been Elijah Mitchell. But I didn't think anything of Cordell Patterson because he's been in the league for 10 years. He's never been anything consistent.
Yeah.
Right? Forget fantasy. Real life fantasy, otherwise, whatever the case is. So it never seemed like it was real. It seemed like, okay, capitalize on it for the week or 2 that it's going, and then they'll finally get Ridley going, and they'll figure things out. And you know what? It's been the waiver wire that keeps delivering, right?
1 second, Nick. We're gonna add a special guest here.
I'm not ready. Who is it?
You're not ready. Let's add a special guest here. Mr. Lindsay!
Boys,
Mr. Beards itself.
Yeah.
Well,
we
get your podcast.
Yeah, we're just talking about the trade, as you can see.
Okay.
Yeah. Can he see it? He's on his phone. He might not be able to see the ticker tape at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I'm calling you. My phone with Olive here sitting beside me.
Hello, Olive.
That's my phone.
Nick and I were just discussing the trade that you made. Fantastic trade that you did. Good for depth.
Thank you.
Let's get your perspective.
Yes, let's get you.
Okay, well, as the trade came through last night, I deliberated for about 5 seconds, and then so in my thought process, back at my draft picks, my mid-season trades from all the previous seasons, I would like to, as you can see, my handle on your podcast there. I'd like to.
It says Risky Rizzy for anyone that's just going to be listening.
Self-proclaiming my nickname to be Risky Rizzy with my uneducated spur of the moment, spontaneous, emotional decisions made at the quick fingertips of whatever I think is right at that moment. Going as far back as the first draft day when I'm picking a quarterback in the second round and throwing everybody for a loop. So that's
well. So let's get into this question and answer. This is great. I'm not even prepared. But so Rizzy, on Sunday night, I sent you a message and said, if you lose this week, is Kamara available? And you said, not at this time. I'm going to ride this thing out for a couple weeks. So what happened between Sunday night and Wednesday evening when you decided I'm going to completely change my philosophy? Is it just the risky Rizzy that came out to play, or was there something that caused you to move?
Yes, because the thought was before I was going to trade Kamara straight up for draft picks and get a bunch of garbage in return and build for next year. Mm-hmm. So once I saw what panned out last weekend and how tight I believe the race is for 4th and 6th place, because everyone's at 4 and 4 and 2 and 6, which I believe is a surmountable task, a hard one, but surmountable to catch 6th place.
You can. It's achievable.
I thought that trading for some more assets would be a good play as opposed to just giving up. So was Kamara available for a first round draft pick after losing? No, it wasn't, because I thought I had a chance. But when it came to adding assets and depth to my team, then I felt it was a good move.
It's a good move. I like Patterson. Are you kidding me? Like, Patterson is the flexibility of this whole thing that could kind of make or break, as I was telling Nick. Buddy boy, Nick's boy, is taking a little time out. And so I think your boy is going to be the new wide receiver / everything. He's going to be the guy.
I didn't know any of that before. I saw the little W and R beside his name. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He can do both. Cool. And then I looked at his previous days of what he had performed, and it was pretty solid. 12s, 13, 16, really good game. So all in all, I was looking for consistency. That's what I was looking for, right? I know Kamara has those ability to have the breakout games where he's getting like 29, 30 points. Those aren't every week, right? And then sometimes completely shits the bed and he gets like 7. And then the whole Winston thing, right? Going out and then the quarterback coming in. Just the Saints' overall gameplay wasn't really working out as it was last year. So I thought it would be smart, right? I looked a little bit into Dallas's what they got going on, and hopefully Prescott comes back. But either way, Cooper Rush showed that he can.
You bastard! Cooper Rush took me out last week.
Cooper Rush. Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, that was a fantastic move right there.
I can't comment on that. Sorry, I can't comment.
That was a good sneaky move, Nick. Not gonna lie, that was good.
No, you know what? I'm very happy. Just getting away from Mike for a second. I'm very happy that I ended up losing by more than the 23.4. See how I remember it right off the top of my head that Cooper Rush got, because I could have picked him up, and I honestly felt bad of completely screwing him over and not giving him any options. And I felt a little bit cocky because I thought, oh, they're just going to tune this guy up and sack him for 1,000,000 times, and he's going to fumble and everything else. So when he ended up beating me by more than what Cooper Rush got me, I'm like, oh, I was going to lose anyway. Thank God I didn't screw him. But I totally screwed myself over for sure.
Yeah. No, it was good times. Good stuff, man.
No, I think you're right though. The consistency with Cordell, I think, is going to be there. If Cooper, you're going to be pissed at him the same way that you are with Evans, is he's going to have these 30-point games and he's going to have these really low point. It's just what he is. So he's a little bit more boomer bust. So if you're going for it this year, I think it was a pretty good trade for you.
For this year, it's good. For this year, it's good. I think Mike has a shot with it.
Yourself a little bit for next year with it, because I don't know who your keeper is going to be.
I was talking to Brian about this, and I really feel like even with the choice, if I had Kamara on my lineup, I'm not sure I'd keep him again for next year over, at this point, how he's performing, Debo, because I didn't realize how young he was, and that if he sustains what he's doing, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't keep him being like the number one and getting like consistent points and being targets, right?
Yeah, as long as Trey Lance decides that he's going to throw it to him. We don't know what Trey Lance is going to be, so that's the only concern
Garoppolo.
with
I think it's
people, but
probably
he's obviously performing well.
It's going to be Garoppolo who's going to be throwing the ball. It's not going to be Trey Lance.
No. Garoppolo's not going to be there next year.
No, I didn't say that next year, but yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I just made a switch up, and I'm going
Well,
for
we announced that already.
You did announce it, yes.
announcing it. Tavolia. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
Just call him Tua.
Just Tua.
We're a bunch of white people. Just call him Tua.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to play. He's going to get some points.
Yeah. Russell Wilson is available starting next week, Mikey, since you're pushing the pins all in.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That was fantastic. Okay, guys, we're going to end it off this way.
Last minute edition. All right.
Last minute, first time guest, Michael. Welcome. Fantastic. And so tune in on Sunday, boys, and we'll see who our new guest is going to be.
Mike's out.
Have a good night.
Right.
Okay, see you, buddy.
Okay, see you, boys. Bye. Okay, Nick, fantastic. I'm gonna start doing the outro here, guys. Till next time.
This has been the bin.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Banter Brothers with your host, Brian Paulo, and his co-host, Nick Johnson. Make sure you tune in each and every week where they'll be ripping up the airwaves, delivering you the fantasy football highlights. Again, this is the Banter Brothers. Banter Brothers. Banter Brothers. Banter Brothers. Woo, yeah, woo, yeah, woo, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's pretty good. So you're just going to put